Running. It is Tuesday at 10 a.m. So I think it's time to start the stream. Hello, good morning. Right off the bat, apologies if there's any weird skippies or things like that. There's also a possibility that when I upload this to YouTube, we will be shifting this to a more podcast friendly version. There's something going weird with our computer and trying to get it to stream properly or kindly enough. So if you are watching this on Twitch, hello, welcome, join in. But you're going to see a lot of lagging. We're still very new to Twitch, and we're still very new to what we need to do in order to make Twitch work well for us. So that does mean, unfortunately, that there's going to be a little weirdness going on. So that probably translates towards, if you are watching this on Twitch, it's going to be a bit laggy. Apologies. I'm so sorry. I'm doing the best I can with what I got. And, we're working with what we can do too. So making the best of any situation we have is always kind of a good thing to go for. I also realized that normally I put you up way higher, and there we go. That just fixed. So if you're watching this on Twitch, so sorry about the laggies. If you're watching this on YouTube, there's a strong possibility that, what was the intent of streaming on Twitch? So that's a really good question. So this is, let me first introduce myself. My name is Courtney. I am a teen librarian at the Addison Public Library. And, we started streaming on Twitch so that we could reach people who don't necessarily have the ability to come to our library. Some people are housebound and they don't have the physical capabilities to make it to the library, but we still want to be able to reach those people in ways. We do have a wonderful service called Let Our Housebound Services, where we're able to bring them books, but sometimes they're not able to interact in the same way that people who come physically into the library are able to do. Likewise, we have a lot of people who are in college, people who grew up here and came to the library here every single day when they were in middle school and sometimes in high school. And now they're in college in Florida and California. And I know that somebody was in Hong Kong for a while, so it gives them an opportunity to stay connected to the library and still be able to participate and, just have a great way of doing things. It gives us another platform to be able to show off all the things that our library has and can offer, and just be able to reach our patrons in a different way. And if people outside of Addison, Illinois are able to also have that, cool. I'm glad you're here. I hope that you're enjoying yourself. So as kind of that's actually a really good segue. So we use a lot of the stuff that is available to us from the library that even you can check out if you are an Addison Library resident, and some of the things where you don't even have to be a resident for. So one of the things that, for example, I am using this Blue Yeti microphone, which is something that you actually can check out if you are an Addison resident. This is from our Library of Things. It is a really cool collection where you can check out different kinds of items and, like a Blue Yeti microphone. We also have a ring light. There's also a telescope in there and a ghost hunting kit. And we have Lego sets and a whole bunch of things. Now, we're not unique in our Library of Things. There's a lot of libraries that have Library of Things. So if you're not an Addison resident, I highly suggest check your local library. See if there's a Library of Things for you. You might also be surprised at what other amazing things are available at your personal library as well. So let's roll into it. We are only here for about an hour. I also apologize if I sound a little snuffly. It's because I am. I have my peppermint tea. I've got some cough drops. Hopefully we'll make it through this together. Also, hi, thanks for joining. Glad to have you here. So this is how we're doing it. I wanted to start off, so this is Breakfast and Books, which is only a little bit different than our previous lunch bunch. So last time at Lunch Bunch, we've been reading The Hound of the Baskervilles, which is a book that you can also check out. I'm pretty sure that whoever's library you're looking at, they probably have this one too. It is a Sherlock Holmes story, and pretty popular. One of the more famous Sherlock Holmes stories for sure. But before we dive into that, the thing that I want to make different about Breakfast and Books is that I want to highlight some other books that are available and that I think that you should check out. So, keeping on theme with Sherlock Holmes, this is a book that I read. I didn't read the last book of the series, but I thought it was really, really good. So this is by Brittany Cavallaro. And it is A Study in Charlotte. So it is a Sherlock Holmes retelling. Well, sort of. So this is set in a world where Sherlock Holmes and John Watson were actual people, their history. And it follows Jamie Watson, who is like the great-great-great-grandson of John Watson. And also Charlotte Holmes, who is the great-great-granddaughter of Sherlock Holmes. They are both enrolled in a private university. Are they in a university? Yeah, it's a prep school. So it's a board-away prep school that they are enrolled in. Charlotte was there originally. Jamie eventually was enrolled there. They don't know each other. They know of each other's families simply because, clearly they had really famous relatives. But they didn't grow up together at all. So this is really their first time meeting. And Charlotte, keeping with family tradition, is just in everybody's business. She knows exactly what is going on, but she's very aloof. She doesn't open up to people. And Jamie is just absolutely fascinated by her because they're supposed to be best friends. Like their great-great-grandfathers were best friends. They were like the perfect team. So he's kind of convinced that they can also be the perfect team. So he's doing kind of whatever he can to kind of understand her because she doesn't really meet his expectations. There's something else going on. Sure, there's these mysteries happening. I do believe someone dies. Yep, Charlotte is getting framed for murder. Shocker. So Jamie is kind of determined to go and help her and to try and figure out how this is happening and to clear her name. I will say that there's definitely some trigger warnings in here. Sherlock Holmes, traditionally, he was an addict. He did not have some great lifestyle choices. And Charlotte definitely has some trauma in her story. And it does come through in this book. Nothing that I would say, I would give this one to a little bit more of a mature teen. I would be fine handing it to, an old 8th grader. Addict of what? So he was, I think, traditionally, he was an addict of heroin and opium. So it's really common within the Sherlock Holmes stories. So that's a really good question. It kind of tends to come up in a lot of Sherlock Holmes adaptations and renditions. So the BBC Sherlock Holmes story, he has some moments. And even though Sherlock is such a great show, if you like Sherlock Holmes stuff. But yeah, so it does come up in here. It's not the most pervasive thing that's going on in that. It's not the main story plot or anything like that, just letting you know that it does appear in here. But I really liked this book. I thought it was a great adaptation of a Sherlock Holmes story. It is definitely a run on another Sherlock Holmes story called The Study in Scarlet. So thus Study in Charlotte, Study in Scarlet. I really enjoyed it. I thought the whole series was really good. I couldn't put them down, and then I did because the last one wasn't out yet, and then I got distracted. So I would highly recommend that one. I think it's pretty great. Next book that I would like to highlight. This is also kind of a mystery-ish, a mystery twist with a fantasy skew on it. This is by F.T. Lukens, and this is Spellbound. I read this one. I thought it was so cute and a lot of fun. So this is, trying to remember their names. Okay, right, I remember now. So here is Rook. So all Rook wants to do is be around magic. He grew up, his grandmother was a witch. Magic in this world is very prevalent. Everyone knows about magic. It's just around. It's just as common as, just any kind of thing here it is for us today. Everybody's aware of magic. There's magic detectors. There's people who work as curse breakers. All sorts of things. It's just a really common thing. So think of Harry Potter, but if everybody knew about it, So not everybody can do magic, but for people who can, there's a big magic community for them. Now, Rook grew up in magic, even though he himself has absolutely none of it. He's been tested for magic, and he loves magic so much. It's the community that he grew up in because his grandmother raised him. But when she died, he was ripped away from that community, and he's desperate to go back to it. So he built a machine that lets him track down magic ley lines. So if you're magic, you're able to see these ley lines anyway. And since he can't see them, he built a machine that lets him do that, which is super illegal. So he convinces kind of the most powerful sorceress to hire him as an assistant. She works as a curse breaker. So she gets hired by people who want curses to be broken, and she'll go and fix their problems. And she agrees. She agrees to hire him on, even though he can't do magic, because she's a bit rebellious herself. So she brings him along, and they encounter another sorcerer and their apprentice, who is Sun, who is this character right here. And Sun is very standoffish. They do not like Rook at all. Unfortunately, Rook absolutely likes Sun. Takes one look at Sun and is just like, oh, hi, you look great. Why are you so cute? And when you're all standoffish like that, you're even cuter. Uh-oh. So Sun and Rook kind of get tossed into these little magical mysteries, and they have to learn to kind of work together and open up to each other and trust each other, because they both have secrets. They both have, their own reasons to be standoffish, and drama happens for sure. Like I said, there's some laws being broken here, and that's going to kind of come up. I really enjoyed this one. It's a wonderful little story. It is definitely LGBT, and it's just so stinking sweet. It's really sweet. It's dramatic. It's got that fantasy flair to it, and I really like it. It's sort of like a modern day fantasy thing, which I thought it was a cool thing. So yeah, highly recommend that one too. So, to-doop. Those, I would say, we have them both at the Addison Public Library. If you can get them yourself at your own library, I highly recommend that you do. So, all right, that should do. Quick tea break. And also, probably, let's move on. So we were reading The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I particularly really like this story. I think it's very fun. I also bet that you can find a cover that is a lot more attractive than this one, because this cover is lame. I hate this cover. It's so bad. All right, so we'll pick up where we left off. We were at chapter 4, where to let you know of what had been happening. So a quick recap, as quick as I can make it. Sherlock and John were at home, and they woke up to find that there was a walking stick there, and somebody had left their walking stick there while they were away. And they were kind of speculating whose it could be, and kind of observing it for clues to try and just parse together whose stick that could be. And Sherlock is like, oh, I bet that he has a dog, and I bet you it's a Cocker Spaniel. And Watson's like, how could you possibly know that? He's like, oh, well, because he's outside, and I can see him with his Cocker Spaniel. So that person was Dr. James Mortimer, who is he's kind of a doctor, but more, I think, like a psychologist-ish. This is also like the 1800s or 1700s-ish, like late 1700s, early 1800s. I've messed that up, I know. Anyway, it's the 1800s. We'll go with that. So it's like 1880s, later than that. So I'm not so confident that psychology was a strong profession there, but he's kind of a psychologist. And he's a psychologist to a friend of his who had recently died. And he died while the man who died was out in his estate in the moors, which are kind of like a really hilly area, kind of secluded. There's not like a lot of forestry or anything like that. It's kind of like its own thing. I should also put this. If you want to go and grab a copy of this book, here's information for our website if you want to go and get it. So sorry for the long link. I'm pretty sure that there's a way that could not be that long. But yeah, this is where we got. So, right. So, Sir Henry Baskerville was the name of the man. Oh, no, wait. Henry's not the name of the man. Baskerville is the name of the man who died. I cannot remember his name specifically. Sir Charles Baskerville, I do believe. So Sir Charles Baskerville was out walking on his estate, and his body was found, and there were a lot of strange things about it. For instance, it looked like his footprints looked like he was running away from something. There was evidence to show that he was staring out at something across the moor, and his face looked very deformed, sort of like he was terrified when he died. So it sort of looks like he died out of fear. Turns out that there is a legend surrounding this family in particular that they are cursed if they are living anywhere near this estate. A lot of the family members moved away from the estate, but this guy in particular came back to it. So any of the Baskervilles who live at Baskerville Hall are doomed to be hunted down by this giant, demonic, evil dog. And the family in particular is pretty convinced that that is what has happened. But the psychologist friend, Sir Dr. James Mortimer, is pretty sure that it is not a supernatural thing and wants Sherlock Holmes' help in convincing them otherwise. Or more specifically, to help protect the new heir, who is Sir Henry Baskerville, who is coming in from America. So where we are right now is that Dr. James Mortimer has gone and picked up Sir Henry Baskerville, and this is after Sherlock Holmes has thought about this problem all night long. So we'll just kick into it. Chapter 4, Sir Henry Baskerville. Our breakfast table was cleared early, and Holmes waited in his dressing gown for the promised interview. Our clients were punctual to their appointment, for the clock had just struck 10 when Dr. Mortimer had shown up, followed by the young baronet. I think in this case, baronet is like he's a baron of the town kind of a thing, so like he's a landowner. The latter was a small, alert, dark-eyed man, about 30 years of age, very sturdily built, with thick black eyebrows and a strong, pugnacious face. Pugnacious is such a good word. Just a slight pause is that Sir Henry Baskerville apparently does not know about this little family curse, supposedly. So we'll see what happens. He wore a ruddy tinted tweed suit and had the weather-beaten appearance of one who has spent most of his time in the open air. And yet there was something in his steady eye and the quiet assurance of his bearing which indicated the gentleman. "This is Sir Henry Baskerville," said Dr. Mortimer. "Why, yes," he said, And the strange thing is, Mr. Holmes, that if my friend here had not proposed coming round to you this morning, I should have come on my own account. I understand that you think out little puzzles, and I have had one this very morning, which wants more thinking out than I am able to give it. Pray take a seat, Sir Henry. Do I understand you to say that you have yourself had some remarkable experience since you arrived in London? Nothing of much importance, Mr. Holmes. Only a joke, as like as not. It was this letter, if you can call it a letter, which reached me this morning. He laid an envelope upon the table, and we all bent over it. It was of common quality, grayish in color. The address, Sir Henry Baskerville, Northumberland Hotel, was printed in rough characters. The postmark, Charing Cross, and the date of posting the preceding evening. Who knew that you were going to the Northumberland Hotel? asked Holmes, glancing keenly across at our visitor. No one could have known. We had only decided after I met Dr. Mortimer. But Dr. Mortimer has no doubt already stopping there. No, I was staying with a friend, said the doctor. There was no possible indication that we intended to go to this is kind of tricky because this is just straight dialogue, so I can never really tell who's reading it until I've already finished a sentence. So this is Henry Baskerville. So there was no possible indication that we intended to go to this hotel. Someone seems to be very deeply interested in your movements. Out of the envelope, he took a half sheet of foolscap paper folded into four. This he opened and spread flat upon the table. Across the middle of it, a single sentence had been formed by the expedient of pasting printed words upon it. So it's like a weird ransom note. They cut out letters and they glued them to the paper. And it ran, "As you value your life or your reason, keep away from the moor." Ooh, dramatic. The only word "more" was printed in ink. Now, said Sir Henry Baskerville, perhaps you will tell me, Mr. Holmes, what in thunder is the meaning of that, and who it is that takes so much interest in my affairs. What do you make of it, Dr. Mortimer? You must allow that there is nothing supernatural about this, at any rate. Pardon. Sherlock Holmes is kind of famous for just scoffing at anything supernatural at all times. So the fact that like any sign of like a supernatural curse was even suggested, he's just like, yeah, right, buddy. So probably will not be the last time he snarks about this one. All right. Dr. Mortimer now. No, sir, but I might very well come from someone who was convinced that the business is supernatural. What business? Asked Sir Henry sharply. It seems to me that all of you gentlemen know a great deal more I do about my own affairs. Fair, buddy, fair. You shall share our knowledge before you leave this room, Sir Henry. I promise you that, said Sherlock Holmes. We will confide ourselves for the present, with your permission, to this very interesting document, which must have been put together and posted yesterday evening. Have you yesterday's Times, Watson? It is here in the corner. Might I trouble you for it? The inside page, please, with the leading articles. He glanced swiftly over it, running his eyes up and down the columns. Capital article this on free trade. Permit me to give you an extract of it. So, here's an extract of that article. You may be cajoled into imagining that your own special trade or your own industry will be encouraged by a protective tariff, but it stands to reason that such legislation must, in the long run, keep away wealth from the country, diminish the value of our imports, and lower the general conditions of life in this island. "What do you think of that?" cried Holmes, in high glee, rubbing his hands together with satisfaction. "Don't you think that is an admirable sentiment?" Dr. Mortimer looked at Holmes with an air of professional interest. Sir Henry Baskerville turned a pair of puzzled dark eyes upon me. "I don't know much about the tariff and the things of that kind," said he, "but it seems to me that we've got a bit of off trail here so far as that note is concerned." "On the contrary, I think we are particularly hot on the trail, Sir Henry. Watson here knows more about my methods than you do, but I fear that even he has not quite grasped the significance of this sentence." "No, I confess that I see no connection. And yet, my dear Watson, there is so very close a connection than the one that is extracted out of the other. You, your, life, reason, value, keep away from the. Don't you see now from whence these words have been taken? By thunder, you're right. Well, if that isn't smart, cried Sir Henry. If any possible doubt remained, it is settled by the fact that keep away and from the are cut out in one piece altogether. Well, now, so it is. Really, Mr. Holmes, this exceeds anything which I could have imagined, said Dr. Mortimer, gazing at my friend in amazement. I could understand anyone saying that the words were from a newspaper, but that you should name which, and add that it came from the leading article, which really is one of the most remarkable things which I have ever known. How did you do it? I presume, Doctor, that you could tell the skull of... All right, this is a book that is written a long way ago. So they use terms that are not on par today. So yeah, not fond of this one, but we'll keep true to the text, acknowledging that this is inappropriate. So I presume, Doctor, that you could tell the skull of a Negro from that of an Eskimo. That is a very interesting way to spell that. Most certainly. But how? Because this is my special hobby. The differences are obvious. The supraorbital crest, the facial angle, the maxillary curve, Yes, but this is my special hobby, this is Holmes, and the differences are equally obvious. There is much difference to my eyes between the leaded bourgeois type of the Times article and the slovenly print of an evening halfpenny paper. The detection of types is one of most elementary branches of knowledge to the special expert in crime, though I confess that once, when I was very young, I confused the Leeds Mercury with the Western Morning News. But a Times leader is entirely distinctive, and these words could have been taken from nothing else. As it was done yesterday, the strong probability was that we should find the words in yesterday's issue. So far as I can follow you, Mr. Holmes, said Sir Henry Baskerville, someone cut out this message with scissors. Nail scissors, said Holmes. You can see that it was a very short-bladed scissors, since the cutter had taken 2 snips over keep away. That is so. Someone then cut out the message with a pair of short-bladed scissors, pasted it with paste. Gum, said Holmes. With gum on the paper, but I want to know why the word more should have been written. Oh, because he could not find it in the print. The other words were all simple and might be found in any issue, but more would be less common. Why, of course that would explain it. Have you read anything else in the message, Mr. Holmes? There are 1 or 2 indications, and yet the utmost pains have been taken to remove all the clues. The address, you observe, is printed in rough characters, but the Times is a paper which is seldom found in any hands but those of the highly educated. We may take it, therefore, that the letter was composed by an educated man who wished to pose as an uneducated one, and his effort to conceal his own writing suggests that the writing might be known or become to be known by you. Again, we will observe that the words are not gummed on in an accurate line, but that some are much higher than others. Life, for example, is quite out of its proper place. This may point to the carelessness, or it may point to agitation and hurry upon the part of the cutter. On the whole, I incline to the latter view. Since the matter was evidently important, and it is unlikely that the composer of such a letter could be careless. If he were in a hurry, it opens up to the interesting question, why should he be in a hurry? Since any letter posted up to early morning would reach Sir Henry before he would leave his hotel. Did the composer fear an interruption, and from whom? We are coming now to rather into the region of guesswork, said Dr. Mortimer. Say rather into the region where we balance probabilities and choose the most likely. It is the scientific use of the imagination, but we have always some material basis on which we start our speculation. Now, you would call it a guess, no doubt, but I am almost certain that this address has been written in a hotel. How in the world could you say that? If you imagine it carefully, you will see that both the pen and the ink have given the writer trouble. The pen has spluttered twice in a single word, and had run dry 3 times in a short address, showing that there was very little ink in the bottle. Now, a private pen or an ink bottle is seldom allowed to be in such a state, and the combination of the two must be quite rare. But you know that the hotel ink and the hotel pen, where it is rare to get anything else, yes, I have very little hesitation in saying that we could examine the waste paper baskets of the hotels around Charing Cross until we found the remains of the mutilated Times leader. We could lay our hands upon the person who sent this singular message. Hello, what is this? Okay, so the things about the pen. This is sort of like a dip pen. So it would not be the pens that we're used to with like the ballpoint pens where the ink is inside the pen. It would be, they would have a jar of ink and they would dip the pen into the ink and then write from there. So they would have to like refresh the pen every so often. So that's kind of like the imagery that you're looking at there. So what did he find? How in the... yeah. So Sherlock Holmes was carefully examining the full scrap, the paper, upon which the words were pasted, holding it only an inch or 2 from his eyes. Well? Nothing, he said, throwing it down. It is a blank half sheet of paper without even a watermark on it. I think we have drawn as much as we can from this curious letter, and now, Sir Henry, has anything else of interest happened to you since you have been in London? Why, no, Mr. Holmes, I think not. You have not been observed, or observed anyone following you or watching you? I seem to have walked right into the thick of a dime novel, said our visitor. Why in thunder would anyone follow or watch me? Oh, we are coming to that. You have nothing else to report to us before we go into the matter? Well, it depends upon what you think worth reporting. I think anything out of the ordinary routine of life were well worth reporting. Sir Henry smiled. I don't know much of British life yet. Again, a reminder, he was in America. I don't know much of British life yet, for I have spent nearly all of my time in the States and in Canada. But I hope that is to lose one of your boots is not part of the ordinary routine of life over here. You lost one of your boots? My dear sir, cried Dr. Mortimer, it is only mislaid. You will find it when you return to the hotel. What is the use of troubling Mr. Holmes with the trifles of this kind? Well, he asked me for anything out of the ordinary routine. Exactly, said Mr. Holmes. However foolish the incident may seem, you have lost one of your boots, you say? Well, mislaid it. Anyhow, I put them both outside my door last night, and there was only one in the morning. I could get no sense out of the chap who cleans them, and the worst of it is that I only brought the one pair last night in the Strand, so I have never had them on. So he bought them last night. Pardon me. I think it's time for a cough drop. I really love these Ricolas. They're so yummy, but also really helpful. So, hopefully this helps. Having a tad of a sore throat while you're also reading for a solid 45 minutes is not possibly the best idea. But hey, here we are. Okay. So he just bought the boots. If you had never worn them, why did you put them out to be cleaned? Well, they were tan boots and had never been varnished. That's why I put them out. Then I understand that on your arrival in London yesterday, you went out at once and bought a pair of boots? I did quite a good deal of shopping. Dr. Mortimer went around with me. You see, if I am to be a squire down there, I must dress the part, and it may be that I got a little carried away, or a little careless in my ways out west. Among other things, I bought these brown boots, gave $6 for them, and had one stolen before I had even put them on my feet. $6 at the time, very expensive. So it's like a pair of Air Jordans, and they were stolen. Like, it seems a singularly useless thing to steal, said Sherlock Holmes. I confess that I share Dr. Mortimer's belief that it will not be long before the missing boot is found. Probably a strong clue that'll come up later. And now, gentlemen, said the baronet with decision, it seems to me that I have spoken quite enough about the little that I know. It is time that you kept your promise and gave me a full account of what we are all driving at. Your request is a very reasonable one, Holmes answered. Dr. Mortimer, I think that you could do no better than to tell your story as you told it to us. Thus encouraged, our scientific friend drew his papers from his pocket and presented the whole case as he had done upon the morning before. Sir Henry Baskerville listened with the deepest attention and with the occasional exclamation of surprise. Well, I seem to have come into an inheritance with a vengeance, he said, when the long narrative was finished. Of course, I had heard of the Hound ever since I was in the nursery. It's the pet story of the family, though I never thought of taking it seriously before. But as to my uncle's death, well, it all seems boiling up in my head, and I can't get clear of it yet. You don't seem quite to have made up your mind whether it's a case for policemen or a clergyman. Precisely. And now there's this affair of the letter to me at the hotel. I suppose that fits into its place too. It seems to show that someone knows more about what we do about, or more than we do about what goes on upon the moor, said Dr. Mortimer. And also, said Holmes, that someone is not ill-disposed towards you, since they are warning you of danger. Or it may be that they wish, for their own purposes, to scare me away. Well, of course, that is possible also. I am very much indebted to you, Dr. Mortimer, for introducing me to a problem that presents several interesting alternatives. For the practical point which we now have to decide, Sir Henry, let's start that over. But the practical point which we now have to decide, Sir Henry, is whether it is or is not advisable for you to go to Baskerville Hall. I think that's a fair question. The person before you who was at Baskerville Hall just got killed. He's dead. We don't know how. It might be murder. It might not be. Who knows? There's also possibly a curse or somebody hunting you. Would you go? I wouldn't go. But, Sir Henry Baskerville, why should I not go? There seems to be danger. Do you mean danger from this family fiend, or do you mean danger from human beings? Well, that is where we have to find out. Whichever it is, my answer is fixed. There is no devil in hell, Mr. Holmes, and there is no man upon earth who can prevent me from going to the home of one of my own people. And if you may take that to be my final answer. His dark brows knitted and his face flushed to the dusky red as he spoke. It was evident that the fiery temper of the Baskervilles was not extinct in this their last representative. Meanwhile, he said, I have hardly had time to think all of what it is that you have told me. It's a big thing for a man to have to understand and to decide at one sitting. I should like to have a quiet hour by myself to make up my mind. Now, look here, Mr. Holmes. It is 11:30 now. Almost now. It is 11:30 now, and I am going back right away to my hotel. Suppose you and your friend Dr. Watson come around and lunch with us at 2. I'll be able to tell you more clearly then how this thing strikes me. Is that convenient to you, Watson? Perfectly. Then you may expect us. Shall I have a cab called? I'd prefer to walk, for this affair has flurried me rather. I'll join you in a walk, with pleasure, said his companion. Then we will meet again at 2 o'clock. Au revoir, and good morning. We heard the steps of our visitors descending the stair and the bang of the front door. In an instant, Holmes had changed from the languid dreamer to the man of action. Your hat and boots, Watson, quick, and not a moment to lose. He rushed into his room in his dressing gown and came back in a few seconds with a frock coat. He had hurried together down the stairs and into the street. Dr. Mortimer and Baskerville were still visible, about 200 yards ahead of us in the direction of Oxford Street. Shall I run on and stop them? Not for the world, my dear Watson. I am perfectly satisfied with your company if you will tolerate mine. Our friends are wise, for it is certainly a very fine morning for a walk. He quickened his pace until we had decreased the distance which divided us by about half. Then, still keeping 100 yards behind, we followed into the Oxford Street and so down Regent Street. Once our friends stopped and stared into a shop window, upon which Holmes did the same. In an instant afterwards, he gave a little cry of satisfaction and followed the direction of his eager eyes. I saw that a hansom cab with a man inside, which had halted on the other side of the street, was now proceeding slowly onward again. There's our man, Watson. Come along. We'll have a good look at him if we can do no more. So he's tracked down that they're being followed. At this instant, I was aware of a bushy black beard and a piercing set of eyes turned upon us through the side window of the cab. Instantly, the trap door at the top flew up. Something was screamed at the driver, and the cab flew madly off down Regent Street. Holmes looked eagerly around for another, but no empty one was in sight. Then he dashed in wild pursuit amid the stream of traffic, but the start was too great, and already the cab was out of sight. There now, said Holmes bitterly as he emerged panting and white from the vexation from the tides of vehicles. Was ever such a bad luck and such bad management too? Watson, if you are an honest man, you will record this also and set it against my successes. So Watson is famous for everything is written from the perspective of John Watson because he's writing this from his eyes. And all of the Sherlock Holmes stories are kind of presented like John Watson and Sherlock Holmes are real people. And John is publishing these stories about their adventures. So Sherlock Holmes saying this here is like, you always constantly tell about like how amazing I am. You better put this in here too, because it's not always true. So he's calling him out for making him look like a hero. Watson says, who was that man? I have not an idea. A spy? Well, it is evident from what we have heard the Baskervilles has been very closely shadowed by someone since he has been in town. How else could it be? How else could it be known so quickly that it was the Northumberland Hotel which he had chosen? If they had followed him the first day, I argue that they would follow him also the second. You may have observed that I twice strolled over to the window while Dr. Mortimer was reading his legend. Yes, I remember. I was looking out for loiterers in the street, but I saw none. We are dealing with a clever man, Watson. This matter cuts very deep, and though I have not finally made up my mind whether it is a benevolent or a malevolent agency which is in touch with us, I am consciously aware of power and design. When our friend left, I at once followed them in hopes of marking down their invisible attendant. So wily was he that he had not trusted himself upon foot, but he had availed himself of a cab, so that he could loiter behind or dash past them, and so escape their notice. His method had the additional advantage that if they were to take a cab, he was all ready to follow them. It has, however, one obvious disadvantage. Hi, guys. Teens are walking by. It puts him in the power of the cabman. Exactly. What a pity we could not get his number. My dear Watson, clumsy as I have been, you surely do not seriously imagine that I have neglected to get the number. No, 2704 is our man, but that is of no use for the moment. I fail to see how you could have done more. On observing the cab, I could have instantly turned and walked in the other direction. I should then, at my leisure, have hired a second cab and followed the first at a respectful distance, or, better still, have driven to Northumberland Hotel and waited there. When our unknown had followed Baskerville home, we should have had the opportunity of playing his own game upon himself and seeing where he was made for. As it is by an indiscreet eagerness, which has taken advantage of the extraordinary quickness and energy of our opponent, we have betrayed ourselves and lost our man. And also now this guy knows he's after him. Ooh, not a good call. We had been sauntering slowly down Regent Street during this conversation, and Dr. Mortimer, with his companion, had long vanished from us. There is no object in our following them, said Holmes. The shadow has departed and will not return. We must see what further cards we have in our hands and play with them with decision. Could you swear to that man's face within the cab? I could only swear to the beard. And so could I, from which I gather that in all probability it was a false one. A clever man upon so delicate an errand has no use for a beard, save to conceal his features. Come in here, Watson. He turned into one of the district messenger offices, where he was warmly greeted by a manager. Ah, Wilson, I see that you have not forgotten the little case in which I had the good fortune to help you. No, sir. Indeed, I have not. You saved my good name, and perhaps my life. Oh, good. We're on the last page of this chapter. My dear fellow, you exaggerate. I have some recollection, Wilson, that you among your lads a lad named Cartwright, who showed some ability during the investigation. Yes, sir, he is still with us. Could you ring him up? Thank you. And it should be glad to have a change of this £5 note. A lad of 14, with a bright, keen face, had obeyed the summons of the manager, and stood now gazing with great reverence at our famous detective. Let me have the hotel directory, said Holmes. Thank you. Now, Cartwright, there are the names of 23 hotels here, all in the immediate neighborhood of Charing Cross, do you see? Yes, sir. You will visit each of these in turn. Yes, sir. You will begin, in each case, by giving the outside porter 1 shilling. Here are 23 shillings. Yes, sir. You will tell him that you want to see the waste paper of yesterday, and you will say that there is an important telegram was miscarried, and that you are looking for it. You understand? Yes, sir. But what you are really looking for is the center page of the Times, with some holes cut in it with scissors. Here is the copy of the Times. It is this page. You could easily recognize it, could you not? Yes, sir. In each case, the outside porter will send for the hall porter, to whom also you will give 1 shilling. Here are 23 shillings. You will then learn in possibly 20 cases out of the 23 that the waste of the day before has been burned or removed. In the 3 other cases that you will be shown a heap of paper, you will look for this page of the Times among it. The odds are enormously against your finding. There are 10 shillings in case of emergencies. Let me have a report by wire at Baker Street before evening. And now, Watson. It only remains for us to find out by wire the identity of the cabman, number 2704. And then we will drop into one of our Bond Street picture galleries and fill in the time until we are due at the hotel. Okay, and that is the end of chapter 4. And then chapter 5 is 3 broken threads, which we will get to next week. So thank you for joining. I'm so glad to have you along for the ride on this one. It's starting to pick up. We're getting some more clues, some more drama coming in. Somebody is following them, and they definitely have somebody that they're contending with and trying to figure out who is going and doing things. We'll see what happens as it happens. So we will be doing Breakfast and Books every Tuesday morning, starting at 10 o'clock, usually going till around this time. So a nice little start to your Tuesday, or at least I hope so. So thank you for joining me. Hope if you are an Addison resident that you come and stop in and you have a great day. All right, see you next time. Bye-bye. And now we end the stream. Bye.